You believe you're entitled to those funds. That inheritance now belongs to Tiffany, and she'll always be superior to you. My stepmother's phone call cut through me like knives as I clutched my hotel room desk, attempting to calm my pounding heartbeat. Janet's tone overflowed with contentment as she announced that she had drained the trust fund my mother had established for me. My identity is Gabriella Mitchell, and at 28 years old, I believed I had finally broken free from my family's toxic patterns. My pharmaceutical sales career requires constant travel throughout the nation most weeks. This should have been an ordinary Tuesday in Minneapolis while I prepared for the next day's client presentation. Instead, I found myself hearing Janet boast about pilfering my legacy. "I appreciate you informing me," I responded with composure, my tone revealing none of the fury accumulating within me. I could almost visualize Janet's self-satisfied expression wavering at my controlled reaction. She had anticipated weeping, begging, or rage, anything except this calm acceptance. "That's your only response?" Janet pushed, obviously let down by my reaction. "Tiffany requires those funds for her marriage ceremony and new residence. You would only squander it on your pointless sales profession." I reflected on my mother, who had died when I turned 16. She had established a thriving enterprise from scratch and bequeathed me the trust fund to chase my personal aspirations that Janet, who wed my father merely 2 years following Mom's passing, had been attempting to claim ever since. "Do you have anything additional?" I inquired, maintaining my steady voice. The quiet on the opposite end spoke volumes. What Janet was unaware of was that 6 months earlier, I had spoken with Mr. Harrison, my mother's former attorney. He had cautioned me regarding some questionable investigations Janet had been conducting about the trust. Together, we had established protective measures, legal safeguards that would render any unauthorized access not merely impossible, but legally punishable. "You've consistently been such a letdown," Janet spat, making one final attempt to aggravate me. "Your stepsister is more deserving of this than you could ever be." I terminated the conversation and gazed out my hotel window at the Minneapolis city line. My hands trembled, but not from terror. Everything was recorded. Every conversation, every effort, every form of manipulation. Janet had finally exceeded her boundaries, and I was prepared. Existing with Janet resembled treading on fragile ground. Following my mother's cancer-related death when I was 16, my father appeared desperate to reconstruct our family unit. He married Janet just 2 years afterward, introducing her daughter Tiffany, who was 13 then. The strain was immediate and overwhelming. My mother had constructed her pharmaceutical consulting enterprise from nothing, laboring relentlessly to guarantee my future remained protected. The trust fund she bequeathed me represented more than money. It embodied her legacy, her method of safeguarding me even beyond her departure. However, Janet perceived it differently. To her, it constituted an unjust benefit I possessed over Tiffany. "Your mother wouldn't desire you to act so selfishly," she would declare, attempting to manipulate me into distributing the inheritance. "We constitute one family now." But we weren't a family, not in any meaningful sense. While my father immersed himself in work to manage his sorrow, Janet systematically maneuvered to marginalize me. Tiffany became our household centerpiece. Every accomplishment, regardless of its insignificance, received extravagant celebration. Meanwhile, my academic scholarships and business school admission went virtually unrecognized. Janet ensured my father witnessed only what she chose to reveal. The genuine awakening occurred during my college commencement. I had graduated at the top of my class, secured a prestigious position, and achieved everything while maintaining part-time employment. My father couldn't attend because Tiffany had a minor illness. "She requires her father presently," Janet had demanded. That moment clarified that nothing would transform unless I initiated the change myself. I departed the following day and concentrated on developing my profession. The trust fund remained untouched, not because I didn't require it, but because accessing it meant confronting Janet's meddling. Every homecoming visit included her sarcastic remarks about my privileged status and how Tiffany faced struggles without similar advantages. 6 months prior, When Mr. Harrison contacted me to alert me about Janet's inquiries, everything fell into place. She had been executing a lengthy strategy, awaiting the perfect opportunity to act. But I was no longer that defenseless 16-year-old. I was my mother's child and had learned from the finest about safeguarding what belonged to me. The trust fund transcended mere money. It symbolized everything my mother had strived for. Sitting in my hotel room that evening, I retrieved the small photograph I always carried of her. She appeared confident and smiling, the type of woman I had always aimed to become. The trust fund was intended as my security, my opportunity to take chances and create something independently, just as she had done. I contacted Mr. Harrison's number, my fingers remaining steady despite the anger still flowing through me. He responded on the second ring, his voice familiar and comforting. "Janet finally executed her plan," I stated, getting directly to the matter. "She claims she's transferred everything to Tiffany." "I anticipated this," he replied. "I received an alert regarding attempted account access this morning." "Don't concern yourself, Gabriella. The additional security protocols we implemented functioned exactly as intended. Every attempt was recorded and documented." I released a breath I hadn't realized I was retaining. "So nothing was actually transferred?" "Not a single cent," he confirmed. "But we have her completely documented for attempted fraud. The evidence is indisputable. Would you like me to proceed with the subsequent steps?" I considered all the years of manipulation, the sarcastic comments, the way Janet had gradually damaged my relationship with my father. She had been so certain of her scheme, so assured of her control over the circumstances, that she hadn't even contemplated I might be 2 steps ahead. "Yes," I stated firmly. "It's time to conclude this. Forward the evidence to the family attorney and include my father on everything. I want him to witness exactly what his wife attempted to do." "Consider it done," Mr. Harrison said. "And Gabriella, your mother would feel pride. She always mentioned you were more intelligent than anyone acknowledged." After ending the call, I opened my laptop and reserved an earlier flight home. My client meeting would need to be postponed. I had a family situation to address, and this time I would maintain control. I arrived in Boston the following morning. The autumn atmosphere was sharp and piercing. My father's residence, the one where I matured, appeared identical, but something felt different. Perhaps it was me. I had called beforehand to inform him of my arrival, but I hadn't mentioned Janet's phone call. Some discussions required face-to-face interaction. I discovered them all in the living area: Dad, Janet, and Tiffany. Janet's smug smile diminished when she witnessed me enter, replaced by confusion at my composed demeanor. "Gabriella," my father began, appearing concerned. "I didn't expect you until later. Is everything all right?" "Actually, Dad, we need to discuss something." I produced my phone and the file Mr. Harrison had transmitted yesterday. Janet called to inform me she had emptied my trust fund and given everything to Tiffany. "I thought you should see exactly what occurred." Janet's complexion became pale. "I was simply attempting to assist Tiffany. Don't stop." My voice was like steel. "Every attempt you made to access the account was documented. Every call, every forged signature, every manipulation. It's all here." I presented my father the file. His hands shook as he examined the papers, his expression growing darker with each page. "Janet, what have you done?" His voice was barely audible. "She's lying," Tiffany interjected, her face reddening. "She's always been envious of me." I produced another document, the complete trust fund statement. The money remains there, safe and untouched. Janet's attempts to transfer it failed because I was warned about her plans months ago. I took precautions. "Precautions?" Janet spat. "You trapped me." "No," I replied calmly. "I protected what belonged to me, just as my mom taught me to do." The silence in the room was overwhelming as my father read through each document. Every manipulative email Janet had sent to the bank, every forged signature attempt, every calculated move she had made to steal my inheritance. It was all there in black and white. "I did this for our family," Janet protested, but her voice wavered. "Tiffany needed Stop. My father's voice cracked. Just stop, Janet. These documents, you tried to forge my signature. You lied to the bank. You. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with pain I hadn't seen since my mom died. Gabriella, I had no idea. Of course you didn't, I said gently. Janet made sure of that. Mr. Harrison had organized everything chronologically, showing years of Janet's attempts to undermine my relationship with my father while trying to get her hands on my trust fund. The latest documents showed her failed attempt to transfer the money, along with her subsequent angry calls to the bank. This is ridiculous. Tiffany jumped up, her face red. Mom was just trying to make things fair. Gabby has always had everything handed to her. I turned to my stepsister, feeling a mixture of pity and frustration. Handed to me? I worked through college, built my career from scratch, and never touched that trust fund. Mom left it to me because she wanted me to have options just like she did. But Janet couldn't stand that, could she? Janet's composure finally cracked. You ungrateful little. I've already filed charges. I cut her off. The bank has all the evidence of attempted fraud. Mr. Harrison is handling everything. I turned to my father. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but you needed to know the truth. The weight of 12 years of manipulation hung in the air. My father looked at Janet like he was seeing her for the first time, and not in a good way. The next few moments changed everything. My father stood up, his hands trembling as he held the documents. Janet, I want you out of this house tonight. What? Janet's voice rose to a shrill pitch. You can't be serious. After everything I've done for this family. Done for this family? My father's voice was quiet but firm. You tried to steal from my daughter. You forged my signature. You've been lying to me for years. Tiffany started crying, but these weren't her usual manipulative tears. She looked genuinely shocked, perhaps finally realizing the gravity of what her mother had tried to do. The police will want to talk to you, I said to Janet. Mr. Harrison has already filed the reports. The bank fraud department is involved now. You planned this, Janet hissed. You knew I would try to access the trust fund. No, Janet. You planned this. I just made sure I was ready when you did. I turned to my father. There's more. Mr. Harrison found evidence that she's been skimming money from your accounts too. Small amounts, building up over years. My father sank back into his chair, looking devastated. I felt a pang of guilt for causing him pain, but he needed to know the truth. Get out, he repeated to Janet. Both of you. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce. As Janet and Tiffany gathered their things, throwing accusations and tears around in equal measure, I stood quietly by the window, the same window where I used to watch for my mom to come home from work. I could almost hear her voice. Always be prepared, sweetheart, and never let anyone take what's rightfully yours. In the weeks that followed, my father and I had some long overdue conversations. We sat in the kitchen one evening, the same kitchen where my mom used to help me with my homework, and really talked for the first time in years. I failed you, he said, staring into his coffee cup. After your mom died, I was so focused on not being alone that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. We both made mistakes, I admitted. I could have told you sooner about Janet's behavior, but I wanted proof first. I needed you to see it for yourself. The legal proceedings moved quickly. Janet faced charges of attempted fraud and financial exploitation. She tried to paint herself as a victim, claiming she was only trying to equalize things between me and Tiffany, but the evidence was overwhelming. The bank's documentation showed years of calculated attempts to access my trust fund. Tiffany reached out to me via email, claiming she hadn't known about her mother's plans. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I understood she was struggling with her own revelations about her mother's true nature. I'm sorry, she wrote. I always thought you had everything handed to you. Mom made it seem like you were the privileged one, but now I see she was just jealous of what your mom built for you. Mr. Harrison helped me set up my own business consulting firm, something I'd always dreamed of but had been too cautious to pursue. The trust fund my mom left me became the seed money for my new venture, just as she'd intended. Your mother would be proud, Mr. Harrison told me during one of our meetings. She always said you had her business sense and your father's heart. She knew you'd do great things when you were ready. Dad started coming by my office for lunch every week. Sometimes we talked about Mom, sharing memories that Janet had made it uncomfortable to discuss for so many years. Other times we talked about the future. He was finally starting to look like himself again, the dad I remembered from before Mom got sick. "You know what your mom used to say about you?" he asked one day. "She said you were like a diamond, pressure just made you stronger." Life took on a new rhythm. My consulting firm grew quickly, attracting clients who appreciated my direct approach and industry knowledge. I hired a small team, including Sarah, a brilliant analyst who reminded me of my mom, same drive, same determination to prove herself. Janet's trial ended with a plea deal. She avoided jail time but had to pay significant restitution and was banned from working in any financial capacity. The last I heard, she'd moved to Arizona to live with her sister. Tiffany stayed in Boston, working as a teacher's assistant. We kept minimal contact, mainly through occasional emails. Dad threw himself into rebuilding our relationship. He started sharing stories about my mom that he'd kept buried for years, how they met at a business conference, their early struggles to start her company, the late nights planning their future. Each story helped heal a little piece of what we'd lost. One evening, as we sorted through old photos in the attic, we found Mom's business journal. Inside was a letter addressed to me, dated just weeks before she passed. "My dearest Gabriella, I'm leaving you more than money. I'm leaving you the freedom to choose your path. Don't let anyone dim your light or tell you what you deserve. You're stronger than you know, smarter than they give you credit for, and capable of anything you set your mind to. Trust yourself. I do. Love, Mom." Those words became my mantra as I built my business. I framed the letter and hung it in my office, a daily reminder of where I came from and where I was going. My dad retired from his job and started volunteering at a grief counseling center, helping other families navigate loss without losing themselves. Sometimes he'd consult for my firm, bringing years of experience and a perspective that complemented my approach perfectly. Looking back on those events 5 years later, I'm amazed at how much has changed. My consulting firm has expanded to 3 cities, helping pharmaceutical companies streamline their operations just like Mom used to do. The trust fund she left me didn't just secure my future, it became the foundation for helping others build theirs. Dad retired completely last year, but he still comes by the office to mentor our younger employees. He says it keeps him connected to Mom's legacy. We have lunch every Wednesday, making up for all those years we lost to Janet's manipulation. The hardest lesson I learned wasn't about money or betrayal, it was about standing up for myself. Mom knew that one day I'd need to fight for what was mine, and she made sure I had the tools to do it. She taught me that true strength isn't about being tough, it's about being prepared and patient enough to wait for the right moment. Sometimes I visit the old house where I grew up. Dad still lives there, but it's different now. The walls have been repainted, the furniture rearranged, all traces of Janet's presence erased. In Mom's old office, which Dad turned into a library, I found her collection of business books last week. Inside one, she'd written notes about teaching me to run the company someday. I never got that chance with her, but I'm building something of my own now. Every decision I make in my business carries echoes of her wisdom. The trust fund she left me wasn't just about money. It was about believing in myself enough to stand my ground when others tried to take what was mine. Janet's attempt to steal my inheritance taught me something valuable. Sometimes people show you exactly who they are, and the best response is to be prepared. I'm grateful now for those difficult years because they shaped me into someone my mom would be proud of, someone who doesn't just survive challenges, but grows stronger from them. The family photo albums have been reorganized, keeping the memories that matter. On my desk at work sits my favorite picture, Mom and me at her office, both of us laughing about something long forgotten. It reminds me daily that while some people try to tear you down, others build you up in ways that last a lifetime. On the anniversary of my mother's passing, my father and I visited her grave together. We brought fresh flowers from her favorite garden, a tradition we had started that year. Standing there, I shared with him the letter I'd found in her journal. He read it silently, his hands trembling slightly as he held the worn paper. She was always thinking ahead, he said softly, his voice thick with emotion. Even when she was fighting for her own life, she was fighting for yours too. In that moment, I realized that every step I had taken to protect her legacy, every choice to stand firm, every decision to build something meaningful, was her final gift to me. She would be so proud of you, Dad said, placing a hand on my shoulder. And I couldn't be prouder to call you my daughter. Together we stood in quiet reflection, knowing that while some wounds never fully heal, love and resilience have the power to transform even the deepest scars into strength.